Welcome, everybody. I'm very excited about tonight's presentation. I'm Linda Simon. I'm part of Eco Spirits with St. Joan of Arc. And as you know, we have a healthy home campaign. And this is the second step of creating a healthy home, eating your way to a healthy planet. And we're very excited to have Liz Mullen, chef at Chowgirls. And they're a catering company that is reducing food waste and they're sustainable. And so, in fact, Liz, you might want to tell them, like, when you do a wedding, what is the normal amount of waste that catering companies have at weddings? I know yours was greatly reduced.
Yeah, thanks, Linda. Thank you for having me. Really exciting to talk to all of you a little bit about Chowgirls, myself, and everything that we stand for. Chowgirls was founded 18 years ago by Amy and Heidi. It's a catering company owned by two women in Northeast Minneapolis. And from the beginning, they really wanted to focus on sustainability. So it's still a very, very large part of what we do and how we think about what we do in our daily lives. So also really excited to talk to people about how to do this in their home and little tips and tricks that we all can partake, because we know if we all do a little, it really does go a long way. With me, I have Annie, who is our marketing and communications manager. And she is, we call ourselves part of, there's a few of us in the sustainability squad, we call ourselves here. And we just constantly are looking for new ways to do things and make sure that we are constantly trying to find out more information so that when we know better, we do better. So Annie will be able to share the trash, the regular amount of trash that you see at a wedding versus what we do. Annie has done all of that work over the years, tracking that. So amazing. So yeah, we do a lot of different events, from weddings to baby showers. We really love what we do, and we love feeding people. And food, as we know, is so important to all of us. Food is important to our communities as well. And we'll talk a little bit about that here in our presentation and kind of the growth of our company over the years. So Linda, if you could do next slide, please.
Yeah, just one moment. I just want to give a little more shout out to you, is that you've been in this industry for 25 years, besides obviously loving cooking. But I want to talk about that. You know, in March 2020, a lot of things changed for all of us. And so it's important that your team, you started the Minnesota Central Kitchen with Second Harvest, Loaves and Fishes, and the Good Acre. And it's a full circle initiative that not only feeds our hungry community, but also employs out of work chefs, rescues food caught in our system, and sources with locally with farmers. So you're just really a great example about what we can do. So I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you, Linda. Thank you. Yeah, as we know, this, ever since COVID came into play for all of us, a lot of things have changed. And for us, as a catering company, that meant that all of our business was gone in a very short period of time. And so, as you can see, from the beginning, since starting in 2004, really focused on organic food, right? Like how do we do better for our land? And then moving into local, seeing, less greenhouse gases, less CO2, how do we get it closer? And then in 2008, we started we piloted a commercial composting program. Heidi, one of the owners, started that. You know, a lot of us now, probably many of you in South Minneapolis have compost at your home. So that's an amazing step for our city as well. Also, a few of our, not only Heidi, but a couple of other people have taken a master recycling class. And so just kind of learning more about how we can do our best in that realm. And then in 2018, really we started piloting some programs about prepared food rescue. So a lot of the times if you have cans or bread, that was no problem to donate, but prepared foods was always more of a trouble. So with the Super Bowl being in our city that year, everyone was really trying to make sure that we were going to do our best to save all that we could. And so we worked a lot with Second Harvest during that time. And they also have a Meal Connect program, which is mealconnect.org, which any restaurant or catering company like ourselves, whenever we have leftover food, we can use this app and this food will get rescued and brought to another organization that will be able to use it. So ever since that point, we've been doing that ever since. And then when 2020 rolled around, I reached out to some of my friends at Second Harvest and said, we have this amazing kitchen. There's going to be a lot of people that we don't have any business. We don't have any work. There's going to be a lot of meals in need. And with all the restaurants and other places closing down, what was going to happen to all that food that was sitting in these restaurants and warehouses? And so we started Minnesota Central Kitchen. And at that point, it was really just us and Loaves and Fishes and the Good Acre that really started it. And now it's grown to an enormous 12 kitchens here in Minnesota, cooking food and making prepared meals for our community. So, food in our system has a long way to go. But I do believe that everyone deserves food access and being able to have what they need for them and their families. So, and that's just meeting people where they are. So not only, maybe a box of food is great for some of us if we are in need, but not everyone has a stove to cook it on or a place to heat up a meal. So it's really tied together a lot of organizations, and I am extremely proud of my team here to make it happen and to get it going and to see it continue to grow even beyond Minnesota. So they're now Minnesota Central Kitchen has moved into Rochester and they're looking to move to Duluth too. So really helping our whole community. So yeah. Thank you. Next slide, Linda.
Oops. Working here. Man.
So sustainability, I mean, we talk about it a lot. We talk about it not only for the food that we purchase and where we get it from. We believe in supporting our local ag very extensively, and that's one of our ways of what sustainability means. But also we talk about it at Chowgirls as what is sustainability for all of our employees. But what does it mean to you guys, right? What does that look like? I think it's really comes down to kind of these three things. What are you purchasing? Who are you purchasing it from? Where do your dollars go? Like if all of our dollars go to someplace that gives us great power to make a change. Utilizing, and that's kind of what we're going to talk about here too today with some videos and some food demos, is how do we utilize that food to the best that we can so that we're not wasting in our own homes. And then also the waste portion. What are we doing with our waste? We talked about compost, recycling, all the things that we can do besides putting it all in the trash. Next slide. So purchasing, support local farmers, makers. Again, where do your dollars go? Only buying what you can use. I know Costco and Sam's Club are wonderful for some things, but some things definitely tend to go in all of our own fridges. And so how can we do the best? Purchase seasonally. So anytime you purchase seasonally, it's going to be more local. If you're getting it from co-ops and such. That way we're not creating, airplane rides and train rides and truck rides for the food to get to our mouths. And we're spending less in farther away. Purchasing from reputable sources that share your values. So we tend to, here at Chowgirls, look at not only, sure, is it organic, is it local, but who are we supporting and what are their values? How do they treat their employees? So it's it's extensive list of who we get things from, just to make sure that we're putting our money where our mouths are. And then celebrate biodiversity. A lot of the stuff that we used to see being grown is not grown anymore because we just have honed in on these certain things. So trying to kind of expand that. And one way to do that is obviously go to our farmers markets and see what people are growing here and trying new things. Next slide. So this is something we use at Chowgirls, and this is kind of, again, talking about the seasonality of what we use and what we have on the menus for people to order during different seasons. And we will share all of this with Linda and this whole group so that you can really kind of dig in and have this for yourselves. So you'll see spring, kind of what's coming in. And obviously we live in like frozen tundra, and I know everyone's feeling it right now because it's the last bit of horrible spring, but it is coming, and there are some fun things that are starting to show up locally. And so we have this slide, and then the next one shows our fall and winter months. And again, fall is always bountiful. Winter obviously starts to slow down. But again, we'll share all of these with you so you can dig in and have those, even print them up and put them on your fridge so you can look when you're doing some menu planning. Next slide, Linda. And I think you might have to hit next too for the next words. I made a fancy thing. I think it shows up after. There you go. Thank you. So utilizing, use what you purchase, easy as that, but sometimes doesn't feel as easy. One of the biggest ways that I do it at my home and here at work is really staying organized. So that is cleaning out your fridge, pulling everything that's in the back to the front. And that's, I think there might be on another slide too, but we call it FIFO in our world, which is first in, first out. So when you go grocery shopping, you're not shoving all the new groceries in the front and all the old stuff goes to the back. You're rotating like they do at the grocery store. So you're seeing first what needs to be used first and really making it a really easily visual for you. Properly storing food. So keeping your veggies in the crisper, keeping your cheese wrapped tight, all of those things. Freezing, you start having berries go bad, put them in the freezer, use them for smoothies. Pickling, which we'll share in the video. We'll have one of our pickling recipes. And then just kind of exploring that, if that's something, you don't have to necessarily pickle in a mason jar and get it, to where it's locked and loaded for the whole entire year. You can do a quick pickle and that stuff will keep good for a couple months and save those veggies. And then you can if you're up to it and you know how to do it. It's an awesome way to save all your veggies from the summer. And then I think one of the hardest things for me and my family is leftovers, making sure you eat the leftovers and that they just aren't going bad in your fridge. Next slide. This one, sorry that this is a little fuzzy, but I hope you can all see that. So this is obviously not just from the US, as you can see below, but really kind of gives you an idea of what is what we grow and what we have, what's consumed, and then how much is actually lost. 40% of the food that we grow ends up going in the garbage. And so I have a very hard time saying that there's not enough food for everyone when there's plenty of food for everyone. It's how we treat it. And that goes from, not just in our own homes, it goes to organizations like ourselves, restaurants, warehouses, food distributors, and grocery stores. It's how are we taking care of the things that we have spent so much time, energy, water, growing, and then to see it go. So these are big things that can make a huge change. Next slide. So I pulled some of these facts actually from one of, I think I pulled it from the PCA, the Pollution Control Agency of Minnesota. So preventing food waste, economic impact, a family of 4 in Minnesota could save $1,200 a year by reducing their food waste, which is, a chunk of money. Environmental impact, food makes up 18% of our landfills in Minnesota, where it breaks down and produces methane. And reducing food waste is a significant opportunity to mitigate climate change. So this is where it kind of all ties together. And I know Linda has shared you guys doing a lot of these programs and all the things that we can do. And so I really hope that it sticks with you that food waste really can do a lot. And then social impact. 1 in 12 households in Minnesota experiences food insecurity that could be alleviated by food rescue efforts. So that's all of us, right? When we purchase something and have it go bad in our fridge, we're signaling to our grocery store that we need it and we're purchasing it, but and they continue to purchase more for us to have it be there. So just thinking of the chain effect that all of us can make a huge difference. Next slide. So this is a video we kind of shared. So we did a presentation for food waste with Tangletown Neighborhood Association. They were so lovely to have us. And so I wanted to share some of that video with you guys. Some of it we went through people's fridges and kind of went through their leftovers. And maybe Linda, we can share the whole video, but we don't have time for the whole video today. So if you'd like to see some of that. And then we kind of went into some recipes that I brought to share that maybe will have a different outlook of how you can treat your, look at that picture. That is a great start to my face right here.
You like that.
Yeah, and then afterwards we can do, this might bring you some questions. If you've been holding on to questions, we will do all the questions and answers after that. And then as always, I'll share all of my information too. So if you think of something down the road, please reach out. So
great. I think we're all eager to see you do the cooking demo, so we'll move on.
Oh, okay, well, we can continue questions too while we're doing the cooking. Okay. Yeah, awesome. Great.
Thank you, Liz.
Oh, thank you. I love all the questions and I appreciate it because it's great to bring to head things that people are thinking about that I may not have thought about for this presentation, and also to kind of give tips to each other, right? Like maybe there's some great tips out there that people want to share that they have tried before, to encourage that in the rest of the group as well. So if anyone wants to share too, that's awesome. Great. Okay, so we're gonna do two things today. We're gonna do a quick pickle. This is, same as any kind of pickle, but you don't necessarily have to do the canning piece of it. Yes, you can. Obviously, your canned goods will last so much longer, but it's a really, really big process to can. And so I just wanted to show, we do a lot of just like quick pickling. We also have a very extensive HACCP plan, which is a hazard analysis critical control point plan here at Chowgirls for pickling, so that we are able to pickle here. That's also testing the pH levels on the first day and 3 months in, and there's a lot of process to it, but that's to be able to keep it for 6 months. So that's one way that we've curbed our waste here at Chowgirls. But I really love a quick pickle, and then being able to utilize that stuff on like cheese and charcuterie plates, or in your sandwiches, things like that. And a great way to utilize leftover veggies that are kind of starting to maybe go, right? Because pickling will kind of perk them back up. All right, so we're gonna start. We will just get some vinegar. So typically it's a white vinegar, right? But I like to experiment and get kind of creative with it.
I'm just gonna jump in because Liz and Annie, it looks like the screen moved. We swapped.
Yeah, sorry about that.
That's okay.
We're swapping computers. Great. So I am going to do some green beans, which I love a pickled green bean, also really great in a Bloody Mary. And so these are quite fresh, but like I said, just pick. I think part of it is taking the time, right? Taking the time to pick through stuff, taking the time to pick through your berries. If you have a couple berries that are starting to go bad and you pick those out, the rest will last longer. If you leave those rotten ones in, they will just spread very, very quickly. And again, if you need to throw them in the freezer for smoothies, pick out the bad ones, throw them in the freezer. Even if they're a little mushy, you won't even notice because it's in a smoothie. So like I said, we're going to start with white vinegar, but I like to kind of switch it up. So I am going to do some white vinegar, and I'm going to do some rice wine vinegar as well. I always love to talk to people about what are their top 2 vinegars that they use in their households. Another one for us at my house is apple cider vinegar, but the stuff with a really good gunk on the bottom. So it's like really, really good. So I'm going to take, I'm going to actually double this recipe that we're making and just do some mix of vinegar. And we are going to send these little recipes out too. And on the recipes, there's encouragement to play. So again, don't be scared, just play a little bit. It's going to be fine, I promise. And also what I love about pickling is that you get to like choose your adventure, right? Like what flavors do you like? What do you have kicking around? What kind of hot sauces do you have in your fridge, right? That maybe you have this much hot sauce of your favorite hot sauce. You can't just let it go, but you know you're not going to necessarily use it. Throw it in your pickling liquid, right? It'll kind of give it some nice flavor as well. So you'll take your vinegar and you're going to take your salt, which this one calls for 6 tablespoons salt. Might have to get the big guy. Yeah, 4. And I think the most important thing for pickling so that you have the right pH is following the recipe on that pickling liquid. And you're not going to have to worry too much, you know, about that. And this is hard for me because I don't typically measure. 2 tablespoons, but we're going to do 4 tablespoons of sugar, which Annie, I forgot the sugar. I know. So Annie's gonna go grab me sugar, but I'm just gonna start this kind of low. So basically you're gonna boil this vinegar, sugar, and salt just till it's disintegrated, right? So you don't see the sugar and the salt on the bottom. If you're doing like a hard vegetable, like I love pickled beets as well, you'd want to peel this, slice it however you want to. You could even do nice thin slices that would be really great on a salad, or thick slices for just snacking on too. But what I like to do with the harder veggies is cut them up, and in this stage when you're kind of boiling, put those in there so that you can get them a little tender, right? So you're not rock hard beets and turnips or whatever you want to pickle. If it's something soft like a green bean, cauliflower, broccoli, something like that, I would kind of finish the recipe and then just dump it over those veggies so you're not getting them to a mushy stage. So we will just clean up these guys. And I will get my container ready here. This is a hard plastic, so I don't feel bad about it. I try to not do a lot of hot liquid in plastics, as I'm sure most of you do as well. Thank you. All right, sugar. Great. So we're doing 4 tablespoons of that. We'll mix that up a little bit. And again, this is just really quite simple. So no one has to be worried that it's an expensive process or that you're going to screw it up, because it's just easy. Great. And I think I will maybe do a little sriracha in there because that's kind of fun. And then I'm also going to do some garlic in there as well. Also, I know, Sally, this was one for you as well, right?
Oh yes, my darn green onions that always get slimy.
Yes, totally. So again, right, as soon as they start to get slimy, you'll see, I mean, you're always going to have some like sad ones on the outside, right? But if you just clean them and put it back in your fridge, they will last way more days than if you were just to leave that on. So we'll probably add some of these too into our pickling extravaganza. Maybe you don't have to be, don't be afraid of getting dirty, right? If you like cooking, you probably like getting dirty. All right, kind of starting to boil there. But again, just making sure that sugar and that salt is completely incorporated is great.
Liz, somebody asked about you put the garlic cloves in with the green beans instead of in with the liquid. Is there a thought process behind that?
Do either.
Okay.
Yep. Totally. Whatever feels right. I mean, what's great about these, right, is if you do some like maceration and you're doing this cooking process with some of that stuff, you'll get that flavor right away. But as we know, as pickles sit, they're going to get even better in a couple of days too. So don't be afraid. Either way is great. Awesome. And we'll just kind of slice these up however Just some nice flavor in there. Also, green onions, that can be another like chimney sauce, right? Or an herb rub. So you can take all of this in a blender, add a little water, a little oil, salt, and blend that up. You can add some more greens to it, or herbs, whatever herbs you have hanging around. And just a little acid of some sort is also really good. And that way you will utilize all of this and then stick it in your freezer, Sally, and then now you have a great sauce. Okay.
That's great, because I know a lot of people mentioned herbs were a common thing that went to waste because you buy, you know, a whole pack of sage and it only calls for a few sprigs of sage. So the freezing, I think, is a great idea.
Yeah, and you know, I tend to, if I remember, and I'm guilty as all of us, right? Like if something will sit in there and it's like, oh my God, it went bad and I didn't even see it. But obviously with herbs too, just, you know, take a rubber band and hang them up somewhere, let them dry out. Now you have dry herbs so that you don't have to, yes, it's not the fresh sage or the fresh thyme, but it is something that you will utilize, especially if you have it in view, right? Keeping everything kind of in view. So that's great. Okay, this is almost there. And I'm gonna actually add a little bit more spice to it. And maybe some black peppercorns as well. And I have coriander here. I have mustard seed here. I'll add some mustard seed to that. You know, some of the things, what did we talk about? Beets, warm spices, garlic. I know some people really love like clove in their beets. I tend to, you know, maybe a little bit, but that's really great. Broccoli, cauliflower, a nice pickle with like curry, again, garlic, all the flavors. And it's just always thinking about like those flavor groups, right? Like what goes good with another thing. And I think that's where you can get kind of playful in the kitchen, is when you start to think of it like, we know what goes with curry, right? We know what goes with Italian dishes. And, you know, using those flavors kind of together is always just fun, and you'll find some really fun things that you'll love. I'll share one of my favorite books that I use constantly in the kitchen. And it's called Culinary Artistry. And it's just this amazing book that not only goes through the seasons and kind of shares, you know, what seasons, but it will go through spices and what's good with what's good with duck, what's good with chicken. And it just lists items, you know, so you can kind of get experimental with that as well. But I'll share that as well, because that's my all-time favorite book. Great, so we have it boiling here, everything's disintegrated, and literally you're just gonna pour it over. And it's, you know, it'll be good in an hour and it will be really good in 3 days. One trick we do here is just making sure that everything kind of like stays in there. As you'll see, most everything will rise to it. So we usually use just a little something to kind of keep everything down. It doesn't have to be fancy, and it's not necessarily necessary, but if you kind of shake it around too every once in a while, that's fine. That is it, my friends. Simple, right? Didn't take long. You just utilize whatever you have, throw it in a pot, and then you'll have another use for your veggies that are about to go. So, any questions on that? Flavor suggestions. Favorite pickles.
One person asked about ginger root. I think they were thinking along the lines of herbs and stuff around storage.
Mm-hmm. Like how to store your ginger?
Like store it if you're worried it's going to go bad, or maybe even suggestions for, you know, can you throw that in some pickles, or what would you do with ginger root?
Yes, you can. So the big thing with ginger is you want to keep it dry. So it shouldn't be, you know, in a plastic bag crumpled together, because eventually you'll get a little moisture in there. So keeping this dry, We usually just keep it in a container in our fridge, a plastic container or whatever, a glass container, and just lay it in there and it will really stay for a long time. So wetness is kind of your enemy. You'll also see as it starts to go, you'll get a little bit of molds here, and it will just kind of start to show. Chop it off, you'll see that it does not go beyond just this tip. So you can kind of keep cleaning up your ginger as well. If you have a lot and you know it's about to go, chop it all up, put it in the freezer. For sure. Great. Oh, I love that question. That was fun. All right. So I also wanted, this is, I have to say, this is one of my husband's favorites. And it's a great way for our kids to eat a whole vegetable. Our kids, thank God, love broccoli. But as we all tend to use the tops, and then we forget about the rest of the vegetable. And so this is a great way, a great little salad. It's very classic. You've probably all had it, right? Where, raisins and nuts and broccoli with kind of a creamy dressing. But I wanted to, again, expand your thoughts and feelings on what can go with what. And so we, in the recipe that I'll send along as well, you get to choose your own adventure. So we're gonna clean this broccoli. We're gonna slice this really thin. And then you can add whatever nuts. So pistachios, walnuts, pumpkin seeds, sunflower seeds is typically, what goes in the salad, but don't be afraid to use and utilize those other things that you may have hanging around. And then as far as like cheese, maybe you have some cheddar that's about to go bad, so you want to shred that up and add this to the salad. We also, I love blue cheese, so I will put blue cheese in this as well. Some people do not like raw broccoli. I love it and I'd rather have it raw. But if you do not like that, you can go ahead and blanch it and it will take, 2 seconds. Doesn't matter how much water, throw it in there for like a minute and a half, pull it out and get it cold really fast. It will brighten up. It will look beautiful as well. But if you don't like that raw broccoli, that is what I would do for that. So we'll cut up the tops there. And then we just cut the stalks just really thinly. And I encourage everyone to start thinking about all their vegetables like this. How much of the vegetable do you use and how much do you throw away? Thinking about that graph that I showed earlier about how much of vegetables is actually thrown away. Those little tiny steps are a great way to start with your food saving. So we'll probably do a little bit more here. I think I'm going to do 2 and just leave that little one so I can bring some home to my kids. And this is great, again, as a side dish. I mean, this reminds me more of summer for sure. But it can also be a lunch that you pack up. So you have this great side salad for whatever, a pizza, pizza night. Encouraging you to use your vegetables even though you ordered a pizza, right? You didn't want to cook, but maybe you can just make a salad and then bring the rest to lunch the next day.
So Liz, a question that came in the chat was about what would you do if you're a single person, you're making kind of a large portion here and a lot of things end up being sold and, you buy a whole head of broccoli, what do you do if you're cooking for 1 or 2? That was a question that came up pretty often in terms of how to modify some of these recipes or unique recipes for just 1 or 2 people.
Yeah, I think, it's always really important to cook what you're going to eat, right? anything that you cook will tend to go away faster than if you kept it at its raw state. So, you know, if you're a recipe person looking at the recipe and saying, okay, this is, I should half this, or this feeds 4 and I want to feed 2, or however that looks. And if you know you're not a huge leftover, or you won't get to all of those leftovers in time, I would definitely just try to cook what you're going to eat. As far as, right, so I left this, you know, what am I gonna do with that, right? Well, I would probably use this in another salad, to be honest, later on, maybe with a whole different round of vegetables, and just kind of make it a chopped salad with whatever veggies I have. And I think it's just like making that commitment to yourself that you will end up using that somehow. Again, if it starts to go bad and you're like, I just don't want to do it, don't want to use it right now, but I'm not sure, you know, boil this real quick, cool it down, throw it in the freezer. Yeah. Or if you have a dog, feed it to your dog. Okay, so we're going to do a little bit of the dressing here. This dressing typically is like mayo and sour cream, some white wine vinegar, sugar, salt, and pepper. But I typically don't use a ton of mayo, and I don't, again, stick to recipes. So I like to use yogurt, which my family, that's one way we've kind of cut out some waste is, you know, when you're buying yogurt and sour cream and cream cheese, and you know, you have all these things that you may not utilize, we just cut sour cream completely out and just use yogurt for all of that. So I will be using some yogurt for the dressing, and if you feel like it's not going to be flavorful enough, you know, add some lemon juice to it, add some other spices to it. So we are going to use my leftover yogurt, actually. Great. And then instead of regular white vinegar, I think I'm gonna go apple cider vinegar, which I know none of you have this size apple cider vinegar, but we're gonna do a little of that. And then the you know, classic recipe is very much sugar, but I tend to try to use honey as a substitute as much as I can for when it calls for that, or agave, if you have it. This is from one of our local producers of honey, Bear Honey, that their offices are located really close to us. Also a dear friend of mine that I just love their mission statement. And their honey is delightful as well. You'll probably see that in co-ops as well. They come in little tiny ones. They have a spicy honey that's really, really nice. That is the easiest. There you go. Done. Salt and pepper. So just do what you think you want. I just came back from visiting grandparents and great grandparents of my kids, and really, you know, a lot less salt in their diets, and really started thinking about that for me and my family as well, to start trying to reduce that amount of salt. So when you're trying to reduce the salt, you know, adding things more like lemon, more herbs, more flavor will eventually have you using less salt as well. Great. We'll do a little red onion here. Notice most of us have one of those in our fridges as well. Go ahead and pickle that. Use it on tacos or salads. And we'll just dice or slice however you guys like it. Right. Missed one. So some red onion. All right. I think I'm gonna do some blue cheese in mine today. So I'm gonna go ahead and add a little of that. And then what should we do, Annie? Which nut would you want?
I love pepitas.
Pepitas. Okay, we'll do those. Great. I love these in my granola too. And then I had just a little mixture of dried fruit in our fridge here at Chow that I was like, I'm just going to utilize this up, which dried apricots and dried cherries. So we'll do a little slicing of those dried apricots. Yeah, these ones are starting to go a little hard. I'm glad we're using them. Toss that in. Put some of these cherries in there too. I love these. But raisins, golden raisins, whatever you have in your cupboard. The other thing I'm going to add to this as well is a little bit of fresh apple, because I really like that in this salad as well. So we'll just kind of do a little julienne of apple. We'll make Annie eat the rest of that. Actually, I would love to introduce Annie. Annie works at Chowgirls with me. She's the marketing and communications manager here. Lovely human who is always my buddy in sustainability. And we've worked on a ton of initiatives here together and just appreciate it so much. So fun. Yeah, it is. So thank you, Annie. She helps so much. So we'll throw those in there. And then we'll just add our dressing and mix it all up. It's really real simple. And this is great too, because it's not a typical salad. Obviously, if you're going to dress a green salad, you have, moments to eat it. And this one actually keeps for a couple of days in the fridge as well. And it's beautiful, it's colorful. And you're utilizing all those stems in there, which I just love. Anytime you're cutting, and something that I watch my kitchen crew do a lot too, is how they cut a pepper, right? Typically we'll go on the 4 sides and cut it, and then some people just throw the rest away, right? And if thinking about that bottom piece and that top piece that has the stem that you can kind of just pop out, that's probably 1/4 of the pepper right there. So just making sure, as you're cutting veggies too, you're really trying to utilize all that great stuff. Awesome. That is it, my friends. Simple, real simple. And now you've utilized a whole vegetable, you've utilized some stuff in your pantry that you may not have gotten to in a long time. Yeah, I just love this one, and I hope you guys all enjoy it too.
Okay, everybody. Thank you so much, Liz. There you are. Good. I lost you there. Well, that came up with a question, and everybody can unmute to ask questions now. So if you'd all unmute yourself when you have a question, or anytime, I don't care. So watching you made me realize today I made a kale salad, and I put the stems in the compost.
Yeah.
I probably didn't need to do that.
Yeah.
Or pull them out. And
Yeah, right.
but slice them up, put them in a soup or a stir fry. Is that what we're
Yeah, totally. That's a great use. Any mixed veggies, we tend to just do it. I have two kids, so I have a 10-year-old and a 6-year-old, which is, a challenge in itself to feed them. But we tend to just do a bunch of mixed veggies, and sometimes it's stems of things with, other whole veggies. And they do tend to go for it more when it's kind of a mix. But yeah, and you can even, you can saute them up. I mean, if you have any veggie that has a stem or it's a little thicker, just do that really, really thin. And then your leaves you can do like normal, and then you'll be able to utilize more. So yeah,
Okay.
great idea.
I'm
Love it, Linda.
glad I saw that. And I thought, oh.
Yeah, right. Well, next time.
Okay. Anybody else have questions? I know Elaine had one.
Yeah, what about beet greens? Whenever I buy beets, like at the co-op, they come with the greens on them.
Yep.
And I guess you can use them, but I just haven't, and I'm not too sure how to use them.
Yeah, so same way. I mean, those I kind of treat more like collard greens, if you've ever made collard greens. So a little bit of a longer cook on those beet greens. Those aren't chop up and use in a salad greens. They'll probably kind of hurt your tummy a little bit more to digest. So those I would definitely treat kind of, like collards. So you could do a nice veggie stock or even a chicken stock if that's what you have. And you can do some vinegar, and you can even, I mean, if you like the old traditional like ham hocks, you can do that, but you can also keep it vegetarian as well. And yeah, a little bit longer cook on those, but those are delicious as well.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Liz, I have a question.
Yeah.
I've had the need to use a catering service on a few occasions, and it's pretty painful to see how much plastic is being used with the packaging. It just absolutely unbelievable. It's sinful.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering how you deal with that.
Yeah, great question. Thank you, Jeffrey. So here at Chowgirls, we really try to stick to, we do not have a lot of plastic materials. So any of our compostables are when we do a delivery for one of our events, and they want paper plates and forks and all of that we have forks that are compostable. Most of our wares are either compostable or recyclable when they go out. So it's something we look at, what's coming in, like, are we purchasing a lot of plastic? We even look, as some of our regular orders come in, how are they coming in? Can we try to reduce that waste? Can we buy in bulk for that item, so we're not having all the individual containers, things like that. And then on top of doing that, it's watching the waste go, right? I think a lot of us now save our like plastic bags, right, and we recycle those, and we do that here on the level of stuff that we have. Some things that we can't help that come in plastic, such as like linens. When we have events and we have a lot of linens, those come in plastic. And so those that we actually send to a plastic recycling place that actually makes decking out of it. Not that it's completely going away, but it is getting repurposed. So great question, Jeffrey. Next time you can use us for catering, and then you won't have so much waste.
Well, Annie, you should, you told me in our meeting about, I was really impressed what little waste you had and do you remember the statistics on it? Like you guys have maybe a bag or something?
Yeah.
Jill here. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I've been hearing different things and experimenting with like saving potato water. And I've heard that after if you've been canning or freezing corn, take those corn cobs and boil them down and save that broth. It's a smooth, creamy broth. And, to save it, you either put some salt in it and keep it in the fridge for a while, but it's just an idea for people to remember not to waste all that smooth stuff off of a corn
Yes.
cob and use it in a soup. Potatoes too, potato water, I've been saving a lot of, yeah.
Nice. Oh, I love that idea. That's great. Yeah. And right, if you don't use it right away, freeze it. Pull it, I usually do, we make, we try to not buy chicken pieces. We buy whole chickens when we want chicken at home. And, we'll make a stock and we'll usually freeze it in little, pint containers so that you only take out what you need. And what a great idea for any of those as well. Like, right, those corn cobs have delicious flavor, especially for a soup. So that's an awesome idea.
I put in the chat that I love the term food rescue.
Yeah.
So how does Chowgirls calculate food use for a large event of people? Does food not used from an event find a place for food rescue?
I
And
have
how often does that happen? And I see Annie put a response in the average wedding in the United States produces 400 pounds of trash. At Chowgirls, you average 10 pounds.
Yeah.
How do you do it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, and it goes back to kind of what we were just talking about with that plastic waste, right? That Jeffrey brought up. A lot of places use a lot of, one-use things that just then get tossed for ease. And we really, really focus on, keeping all of that at a minimum or none at all, really. So we look at each event and just make sure that we're doing our best to not send extra. We definitely, there's a lot of catering gigs that we do that they want this, and, everywhere in the grocery store, we all want this bountiful, beautiful spread. And we have found ways to do that in a way where it still looks bountiful, even as it's being minimized and eaten, to still make it look beautiful. But yeah, there's a lot of times that we'll have leftovers, and if they've been kept at a safe temperature, we will donate those. A lot of the stuff that comes back, we also do a family meal. So we have family meal every day with everyone that's here. And so we'll repurpose that food to feed our staff.
How do you transport the products so you don't have to use plastic?
That's a great question. So we do have to wrap some stuff, especially hot food, juicy food, in plastic before it goes. Otherwise, it would be a complete mess and not a very good product. So that is one thing that we've always really tried to find a different solution for. We have a close connection with 3M. And so we always are trying to come up with a different way. The two things that we use a lot of that we haven't found a great solution for is masking tape and plastic film to wrap hot food. So those are things that we hopefully will find a solution for, and make us even less wasteful. Yeah, great question.
I have a question about buying produce. I've heard through the grapevine, my neighborhood WhatsApp group loves to swap food and give away extra food before it goes bad. So we're always sharing ideas and leaving things on our porch for others to come pick up if we have extra. And my neighbor told me you can ask the grocery store produce manager to cut a cabbage head in half and sell you half if you don't need the whole thing. I wonder if that's true of other produce. Is that a good tip? Has anyone tried that?
Great question. I've never done that. And I love that your neighborhood is so tight like that, right? I think, what we do for MCK and trying to use food that's in the system and make meals for our community, doing it on that neighborhood level. And if we all did that on the neighborhood level, what could that mean, right? How much food could we save with our neighbors? I love that idea.
Can I answer her question? I have not done it at our local grocery store here in Minnesota, but when we spend our 3 months in Florida, we can do that all the time at the grocery stores. Ask them to cut it into smaller portions and just take half of the green beans or half of whatever vegetable is there. So I need to try it at our local one here in Minnesota.
Great. I love that. Well, I want to know. I'll have to go too and try it out. Yeah, it is. It's, I think it's, that's where our power is, right? As buyers, as purchasers, as consumers, to ask for what we need. And the more people that we ask for what we need, the more I think most businesses want to do what's best for their customers. And so, our voices are important. So that's awesome.
I like to, I've been challenging myself this year to pretty much make soup out of anything.
Nice.
So, I mean, I have taken leftover stuffed peppers and I made a great stuffed pepper soup, stuffed pepper lasagna soup, any kind of leftovers. I really try to make them into something that they weren't before, like a different kind of recipe, but using those leftovers in a real creative way. And I wondered if you do that, like the soup of the day could be something that was left over and made into a soup. And it's so easy to do when you have an easy vegetable kind of broth. I grew up with that. We always took our leftover parcels of any kind of parts of our vegetables, and we always had a vegetable stock going. And so we cook all that down, even if it was, the ends, the bunt ends, the seeds, whatever. We cook that down and strain that and get that nice broth, and that would become a base for many things. And then the other question I had is about dehydration, because my friends and I, we had like bags. So people gave us bags of greens, and we could use so many. Well, we put them in the dehydrator, and those little lettuce things, they just shrunk to little bitty bits. And then the whole bag ended up in a jar. And then we throw it in with our, like, whatever we're baking, whether it's something with eggs or omelets or quiches, or you just throw those in, and all of a sudden you've got all these greens.
Oh, I love that.
And then tomatoes, we use little tomatoes, we dehydrate those. Mushrooms take longer, but I grew up with a family that we used to pick mushrooms and dry them in the sun. And so I grew up with kind of like knowing that you had to dry a lot of things and pick a lot of things, because we had a family of 14 kids. So a big garden. We would do all those things to make everything last. We put our carrots in white sand in the cellar, so they would last most of the winter.
Yes.
And so just ways to preserve things and reuse them. But the dehydration is really big now with some of the things we're doing, my friends and I are doing.
I love that. And that's so great, right? You've done that your whole life. So it feels so natural, right? And this is where like the knowledge of families and our ancestors of what we used to do to stay alive.
Yes.
Right. And to support our families, we've definitely pulled away from that, right? We have mangoes whenever we want. We have things accessible to us. And so it's also like teaching, other generations about it. And that's where education becomes so important, especially around food. But yeah, I love all of that. Is wonderful. We dehydrate here. I try to dehydrate at home when I have some leftovers. The lettuce is interesting. That's so wonderful. Yes. And also like, right, you're doing this vegetable broth all the time, and all of us are probably going, oh my God, I don't have enough to make a broth. Well, throw a container in the freezer, and just keep throwing those vegetable bits into the freezer until you have a large amount where it feels like, okay, now I'm going to make a stock with it. So you're not, having to do it constantly. I'm sure with 12 kids, there was a pot on the stove constantly. So yeah, but it's different with all of us and how many people live in our homes now. So making those adjustments. But yeah, very important.
those vegetables can be used. I make bone broth all the time. I just keep a bag in the freezer, and when I have chicken or whatever, I just throw the bones in there and the little vegetable scraps in another bag. And people just don't realize how easy that is to make. And you know, if you go out and buy it, it's really quite expensive, bone broth, and it's so simple to make, but it's absolutely delicious.
Yeah, and it's just habitual, right? Like, what do
Right.
we deem important? What are we gonna, start this new process and keep up with it? And so it's just creating new, better habits.
The broth you purchase also is very salty.
Yeah,
So if you're on a salt restricted diet, it's very difficult to find broth to purchase that isn't real restrictive for you.
yeah. Well, and in commercial kitchens, and how I've always learned is we never salt our stocks and broths. We wait until it's the end result and then you salt, because otherwise, yeah, you'll end up with a salty mess the more and more you reduce. So yeah, and we have a lot of salt in our diet. So utilizing other things like vinegars and citrus and brines and all of those things that maybe are less salty, but still have good flavor. Great. Oh, I love all the ideas.
Mary gave a good tip that she purchases compostable plastic wrap at the co-op. So that's really good to know.
Yeah, and so that's, we've tried to like find that in a commercial. I mean, we also use it's our typical size is a 24-inch plastic wrap. And so we're really trying to figure out how we can make that and also to get it to a point where it can be affordable, right? And not
Right.
a huge added expense, but very important.
Liz, I have another question.
Yeah.
On one of your early slides, you were showing the foods that were appropriate for the different seasons.
Mhm.
And when you just mentioned mangoes, it reminded me of what I saw on the handout there.
Yeah.
I was surprised that you had mangoes being a winter kind of food. So I'm kind of curious, when you put that together, I would have thought that everything would have been things that could have been obtained locally.
Yeah.
As opposed to having to be transported in. So I'm wondering, when I go and reference that again,
Yeah.
what criteria did you have for how you categorize those?
Yeah, great question. So, right, not everything on that list is grown here for sure. That's not just a full local list. We tend to try to be as local as possible. We also are a business that tries to, bring what our clients want as well. So during the winter months, we're not ordering berries and such. We really try to get things with the least amount of miles on them. But there are things like, right, we can get mangoes. There's some recipes that have mangoes in them. And we just try to use that minimally. But it's also, right, we try to make sure our clients are getting great stuff throughout the year, because we can't just serve them potatoes and onions all year. So yeah, just the balance of that as well. Yeah. Thank you for that.
A lot of it too, I think, is about thinking about, buy things when they're in season and then, dry them or freeze them so that you can have some different colors for a change
Yeah.
at different times of the year. And it's just getting in the habit of thinking about that to kind of plan ahead.
Yeah.
And it pays off.
And everything, we have access to so much, right? At the grocery store, we can get so many things. But is it necessarily right? Like, what's the best choice? I can understand, again, not wanting to eat just potatoes all winter because that's all we have. But you know, how can we try to do a little bit better than what we're doing?
Yeah.
Yeah. Great. Any more questions?
Not so much a question. This is Elaine.
Elaine.
What's happening to me as we're spending this evening together, I'm making some kind of a connection with COVID, the pandemic, how it has changed our habits, and how in the neighborhood, I see more people walking and I talk more frequently to neighbors. So what's happening to me right now is thinking, we could talk to each other about food waste or food rescuing.
Yeah.
I'm kind of excited now to think about spring and summer,
Yeah.
to have those conversations. Wow. This is
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. Thank
Yeah,
you.
I feel that too, Elaine. I live in South Minneapolis, and so just a couple blocks from the 3rd precinct. And so my neighborhood has and my perspective too has changed on my neighborhood. We were, we all came together, right? And COVID, we're all at home a lot more and all of those things. And it does shift a whole perspective, and that people are more connected, even though it feels in a weird way disconnected from some other people. But our neighbors, right? We still see them coming in and out of our house, and they're there. And to be honest, I mean, I've always loved my neighbors in my neighborhood, but I have grown to know a lot more of them. We all depend on each other a lot more. And yes, food exchange happens, and art exchange and all of those things. And it's just amazing. So I love that you're excited to talk, because it's like word of mouth. The more that we all are talking about it, people will get more aware, or just even have a thought like, oh, I could do just this little change, and that little change may teach their kids to do a bigger change. And so it does have a huge effect. Yeah.
Yeah, like there were just some simple things, like, oh my gosh, if I use the whole vegetable, then that reduces what I'm throwing out.
Yeah.
Right? Imagine that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Or
great.
I might grow something, but what if I put it, on the doorstep or something and said, help yourself.
Yes.
Right. And I was thinking, as if you were talking, the one neighborhood that has the WhatsApp app is brilliant, but that is a great idea. But at least in my neighborhood, every year we plan the National Night Out, and people bring food and all that, and some of it's stuff they bought from the store and plastic and all that. But that is a great. I'm going to commit to talking to people ahead of time that we can use that event as to start making a difference in reducing food waste and also in packaging. So, that's huge in food. We're going to do a little talk on that, on just reducing packaging in food. Sometimes it's difficult.
Yeah.
Plastic wrap.
Yeah, it is. It's a challenge. And, the convenience of it, right? We're all, again, so used, including myself, used to the convenience of going to the grocery store and being able to get a package of crackers, instead of hand making crackers every time we want them. But right, like, what kind of crackers are you getting? Are you supporting a company that supports their community? Are you utilizing all the crackers? Are the crackers going bad? And or maybe you're making them into breadcrumbs and then they become something else, again, it's really the purchasing, and definitely, like, there's a lot we can do, but I think a really great first focus is just making sure that we're not wasting the food that we're purchasing. It's a great first opportunity. So
I would have
So
never
where-
thought about using corn cobs to make a
Broth.
a
Oh,
broth.
it's
A
so
broth,
delicious.
yes.
That
And-
sounds delicious.
Yeah.
Ah,
And also last
yeah,
year,
what
I,
happens to the corn cob? Does it diminish? No.
No,
no, but it takes all of that extra that's on there is utilized into the broth. And so it's more of just the cob.
Just the good stuff, yeah.
Yeah. And so the empty cobs, well, we used to chop them up and recycle them and put them in the garden. So I don't know what people do with them now. But I've really gotten into wanting to help this generation with canning. That's been my passion.
Mm.
And I just want to, I'm going to just walk over. I just want you to see how I decorate my kitchen. Don't laugh at anything you see, but look up here. If I could get up on top here, if I can get this to be seen.
Oh, yeah.
There, you see?
oh, there you go.
So in my kitchen, up at the top, I utilize my space with all my canning. It's all the way around. My pickles are over here. And
Nice.
then I have sauerkraut and everything that because we make all that by hand. And so what I do is I have these little parties with young people and I invite them to come from our garden because we have an organic garden and we get all the produce together and now invite young people to come and can for their
Yeah.
families.
Yeah.
And last year, like we did over 200 quarts of tomatoes, we did. And so that's my way of wanting to pass it on to the younger generation of how you can make stuff. And it's so much,
Yeah.
it's so much fun. I use it as my decoration. My canning in my kitchen is my decoration.
You
And,
also use your bird for decoration, I see.
And this is my art therapy bird. She was a little lonely, so I had to get her out. She works with my students,
Oh,
emotionally disturbed kids. Get
You
in.
know, and it does get passed on. I mean, I
Yeah.
grew up and we always canned in my family, and my husband and I canned, and now our two sons who are adults, they can. And
nice.
so it just keeps getting passed on because, you know, it's a skill really, and it's
Yeah.
not that tough of a skill, but you just keep passing it on, and then they realize, oh, I can do this too. So
Well, and then with cost, look at what it costs
Oh.
now. I mean, I have tomatoes for the whole year.
Mhm.
And I want people to know that you don't have to ever go buy those. And they would have, gone waste in your garden or else, dehydrate them or do something with them or make some kind of a concoction with tomatoes and onions
Yeah.
and, for salsa. And it's just, nothing has to be wasted.
Yeah.
That's how we grew up. Like we didn't waste anything. My mother was big on that.
Yeah.
Oh. So
That's
where
wonderful.
is Chowgirls located? The actual office or kitchen or whatever?
Yes.
That's a good question.
Yeah. So we're in Northeast Minneapolis. We are on East Hennepin, basically in between 280 and 35W. So that's our headquarters. We have a wonderful space, an amazing kitchen. And we do tastings here and stuff like that, but we're not, we're not a restaurant, so we're not open all the time. But yeah, it's a great home for us. It's really a great location too, because we're so close to highways and because we travel so much, obviously, getting food to everybody. So yeah.
And I'm going to put your contact information in. I'm going to email out everybody the recipes, so don't worry about that, and the
Thank
food
you.
source list. And then also I'll put in your contact information because, I'm a big believer in voting with my dollar, and let's support and buy from companies that are sustainable and are trying to make a difference. And I'm just so, impressed that the average wedding produces 400 pounds of trash and yours produces 10 pounds. So that's impressive. And so I'll send out the contact information. So if anybody's thinking about, and you might need a caterer, we know a good one.
Yes. Oh, thank you, Linda.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
wonderful.
How big a group do you cater?
Oh man, we do all over the place. I mean, we'll have we'll have smaller parties, and then we also go, we have a 600 person event coming up here in a couple of weeks too. So yeah, it's we typically, obviously the last couple of years have been way different. But, typically on a Saturday during our busy times, we're serving probably 2,000 to 3,000 people.
Oh, wow.
Oh my
And
God.
it all comes out of that kitchen.
It does, yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
So
it's
I
pretty
see,
intense.
yeah, I see that Megan wants to know, do you teach cooking classes?
Oh, I have not done a ton of that. I have helped, I was just actually this last week, the Good Acre, which is this amazing place. They're kind of a neighbor to us as well. It's an organization that works with immigrant, low-income farmers here in Minnesota. And they kind of create a hub for them, right? For them to come wash and pack and then sell. They help sell their produce. So we love them so much. That's where I get my CSA every year because they're just fantastic and it's close to me. So sorry, I forgot where I was going. What was the question?
About cooking classes.
Oh, yes. So they actually have a cooking program. Thank you. That they have a kind of it's a free program to the people that take it, but they are trying to teach people how to cook and actually mostly go into schools to cook from scratch. So I was able to guest chef teach this week there, which was amazing. And then Heidi and Amy have done some teaching classes as well. It's something that we've done. It's not something that we typically do on a regular basis, but if someone is interested, we're always interested in chatting with anyone.
I was involved. This is Susan. Can
Hi,
you hear
Susan.
me?
Yeah.
I was involved a number of years ago in getting a caterer for my boss's daughter's wedding. And we ended up with Chowgirls.
Oh, yeah.
And I just wanted to pass on to all of you, if you haven't had a chance, the food was absolutely spectacular.
Thank you.
She had a Spanish theme and Chowgirls did the whole Spanish theme, and it was just out of this world. It was perfection.
Oh, thank you.
Everything
Thank you.
tasted so wonderful.
Oh, thank you for that. It's so nice to hear. It is. And there's just this group of people that I work with are so caring. So it's not just caring of the food, but really making sure that people have a good time and remember and feel relaxed, but special. And that's what those events are all about. And we just love doing it. And everyone that I work with is amazing at making it all happen. It's crazy, but they make it just delightful. Yeah.
And
So
it was.
How many of you are there?
So there is a core team of about 50.
Whoa.
And then once we get into our season and we have a lot of, bartenders and servers, that number usually goes up to like 150.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I had a question. You mentioned getting food from reputable sources, and you said Good Acre was one.
Yeah.
Do you have maybe a list of other places to buy good, reputable food? Because, we just go to the store and we buy food. I don't necessarily know where it's coming from or who's
right, exactly.
who's growing, creating it.
Yeah, great question. A lot of the times we have a great co-op system here in the Twin Cities. So when you head to a co-op, your chances of getting, locally organic, all of that stuff are much higher. So those are the places that are really just, you can think less about it, right?
Right.
You go to a regular Kowalski's, Cub, Lund's, and Byerly's, there's so many options. You'd be on your phone researching companies all day to try to figure it out. So going to a co-op will definitely help with that. getting a CSA is a really great way to support local ag. We have so many CSAs that you can choose from here in the Twin Cities. Some of them will deliver them right to your house. Some of them has a pickup in your neighborhood. So that's a great way, because that's putting the dollars directly into our local farmers' hands, which is fabulous.
Right, great. Thanks for the tips.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have one additional question here. A few years ago, I was really quite impressed that Hennepin County had a food rescue program. And I got involved because there was a homeowner who had a tree, an apple tree, that wanted the apples picked. And so we came over and picked them, and they were given to somebody who was going to use them for pickling or for some kind of thing. And they had some other initiatives like that. And then, years ago, I remember hearing stories of how a particular farmer had a relationship with a grocery store, and all the bad produce would go to this farmer who would then feed it to his hogs. Are those stories still pretty common of how relationship with grocery stores and finding other uses for their produce that goes bad?
Yeah, I think that's still happening quite a bit. I mean, I will say, I've been able to live other places in the US, and Minneapolis, St. Paul is pretty unique, I will say, in a lot of these things. We're very progressive when it comes to, having compost. There's a lot of places I've lived that don't even have recycling, which, seems unfathomable to us here, but it's the truth. And so, yeah, I think a lot of that still happens. I know there's still a lot of restaurants that are doing like the pig farmer relationship, which can be great. But again, it's that how much are you purchasing and how much are you utilizing first before it, and then can it go to, other humans that can consume that food as well. So I think, looking at what your priorities are and what works best for your business as well, can make huge differences. But there's a lot of talk about it. And I think, even us being on this call today, right, it shifts just a little bit, right? And then we all get to shift it more the next time we're talking about it. And so, yeah, I hope that, and I don't think that we have a choice to start thinking about it in a better way as well. Yeah, thanks, Jeffrey.
Are there any more questions? Well, I want to.
I can't believe the waste that goes on in a store. If you've ever watched them when they do the changeover from food to, there's an amazing amount of food that is just wasted. It's like big containers and stuff. They just say we can't sell it, and I go, what can you do with it? I mean, can we take some? I've asked and tried to intervene, and no, we've got to follow these rules. But there's got to be a way to rescue some of that stuff.
They do. So here's a lot of the big grocery stores here, especially in Minneapolis. A lot of them do send food, and a lot of them send their food to Second Harvest Heartland, to be completely honest. I would debate that that's a reaction to a not positive thing before that, which would be, for any, like the over ordering of grocery stores or food distributors. Again, there's that look of bounty that they want to portray in their stores. But you will hear, places in Europe, you go and you may not see a red pepper, and that's just is what it is. If we went to the store and didn't see a red pepper, we may be like, what's going on here? There's something's wrong, or where's the manager? I want to, like, what's going on? So I think that, it starts from even the work we do. We are making meals for the community, but why is that need there to begin with? And those are some of the larger action pieces. That's more governmental and legislation, but that's maybe a whole other Zoom recording.
Another topic that we'll add. Yeah.
Yeah. But again, right, that's why it's like, you know, do you want to support a grocery store that maybe has all this stuff and is constantly throwing stuff away and has less of that? Or do you want to use somebody that's not? So again, where you're putting your dollar at. Yeah. Great.
Well, I learned a lot tonight from you and all the great tips. So thank you, everybody.
And this is what's
Wow.
great. Every time I talk with people, I get ideas from other humans as well. And this is what's so wonderful about having these conversations. And so thank you, Linda, for having me and Annie on today. And it's so wonderful to hear about all of your tips that you get to share with each other. And then, you know, the conversations you'll have with your neighbors later. It's amazing.
Yeah, well, we were very excited to have you. This is a great kickoff to get everybody thinking about eating your way to a healthy planet. A lot of us don't even think about that. I mean, we think about plastics or something. So this had a lot of great ideas. So I really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you so much, Linda, and thank you to everyone. As we said, Linda will have all my info, and if you want to follow up or if you need catering or anything like that, feel free to reach out.
Well,
Yeah, thank you. This was
Thank
great.
you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Everybody have
night.
a great rest of the evening.
Thank you.
And let's see. We'll see you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.